Welcome to the first tutorial for the Fusion 360 project. This is the Fusion 360 project page on the Rover Challenge website. These two links is where you should start. This is the link to all of the tutorials for Fusion 360. If you click on this, it's got several of them. The Fusion 360 for beginners is where you should start. You can see that I've watched all 7 of these myself, so that's how I learned. But it tells you how the space is set up, and I'll start doing some of these for one of our wheel parts that we're going to work through. But you should watch all these. It's about 30 minutes. That playlist, if I go back even one more, is this right here, Fusion 360 for beginners. So this link is the beginner tutorial, and then this link takes you to all the tutorials. So the first thing you're going to want to do is we're going to want to open up Fusion 360. It should be in your Autodesk folder right there. This is a cloud-based program, so it does take some time, especially if the internet is slow. You have to be patient with it. You can't click a million miles an hour and expect it to work. So a little bit of patience goes a long way working with Fusion 360. So we'll go ahead and wait for this to pop up. Great. So this is our workspace. If you click over here, this is show the data panel. And right now it opens up to the 2016 Rover folder. You probably have a first project folder and maybe the Rover folder as well. So we're going to go back. We'll just double click here. Rover files. These are the files for the Rover itself, and the student files and demo files. So we'll be working today. This is just where you're going to put your student work and just anything else we have. Every student will create a folder. You can come up here to the icon, click on New Folder, type your name and hit Enter, and this is where you'll turn in all your assignments. We'll double click on My Folder. And you can see all the things that I've been working on. And we're just going to go ahead and close the data panel. If we need it back, we can come over here and just open it up again. I'm working in inches. I've set that as my default unit. You can come over here to Preferences, Default Units for Design. If I click on this, it's set to inches. If yours is set to millimeters, you may want to change it. You can work with primitives. I can come over here and just click on a box, a cylinder, or a sphere and start working with those shapes, but a lot of times it's a little bit better to make our own sketch. Since we're making a wheel, we're going to start with a center diameter circle. It'll tell me to select a plane or planar face I want to draw on. And let's go ahead and select this bottom face. When I left click to select that, it kind of flattens out. And I'm going to draw my circle right here at the origin. Not even going to worry about what size it is. I'm just going to left click to make my circle. And I'm going to right click and say OK to be done with the circle command. The next thing you want to do, right now my dimension is up here. I can go ahead and remove it from the toolbar. So this is probably what yours looks like. If I come down here to where it says sketch dimension, you're going to go ahead and add that to the toolbar, or you're going to use dimension over and over again. So I want to dimension this circle, so all I have to do is click on the outside of it. Wherever my cursor is where the current dimension will appear. I'll left click. You can either place it on the inside of the circle. I like to place it out here on the outside, so I'll left click to place it. And the wheels on last year's Rover, we're going to try to put these cardboard wheels on last year's Rover, so we kind of need to match that, are about 28 inches tall. So I can go ahead and type in 28 and hit Enter, and it go ahead and just makes it 28 inches. Obviously it's too big to see, so I can come down here and click the Fit button. It also really helps to have a 3-button mouse, so you can left click, right click, and center click. The zoom wheel, you can actually click that and make it the right size. So I'm going to go ahead, right click and hit cancel to get out of the dimension tool. If I hold down the middle button, I can pan my object around so it's centered in my screen. These are some of the different sketch commands you can use. But this is our circle right here. We're pretty happy with this. I need to add a hole in the center where the axle is going to go. So I'll just come down here, redo the center circle. I'm also going to start this one at the center. I'm not going to worry about the diameter at the moment. I'm just going to open it up. Same thing, right click and hit OK to exit the circle command. I want to dimension this. And I actually need to go find the dimension first. So let me go ahead. I'll post this on the web page, but I have last year's CAD data. And we're looking at the axle flange. This is what we designed last year. I just have it saved as a PDF. So let me zoom in on this a little bit. A couple things we look at here. All these circles with lines through them, those mean diameters. So this inside circle right here is where the axle goes. That's 1.18 inches. So I'm going to go back to Fusion 360, start up my dimension command again, and I know that diameter, and I can see the arrows going all the way across it, so I know it's a diameter, is supposed to be 1.18 inches. So I type that in and hit enter, and it makes it the correct size. And we're going to go ahead, we'll stop this sketch, and now it goes back to our original design panel. I'll click the home view button. This is your view cube. You can kind of rotate and look at the different views up here. I want to extrude this two-dimensional sketch into a three-dimensional shape. So I'm just going to left click. It selects between these two boundaries. If I wanted to select in here, sometimes it's a little particular about what it likes to select. Whatever shaded blue is what you're going to eventually extrude. So I want to extrude the outer part, so I can go ahead and right click, hit press pool, which will stretch that two-dimensional shape into a 3D object. I think the cardboard we have is 1/2 inch diameter. It's a 3-layer cardboard, so it's kind of thick. So go ahead and hit enter. And now it's taken that two-dimensional sketch and made a 3-dimensional object. I can come up here to the view cube and look at it from one side. These will rotate the view cube. I can look at it from the top side, or I can go back to my home view. So this is a nice cardboard wheel. In a later tutorial we can take this and send this flat image to the laser cutter, but we need to have the bolts pass through here for the flange, and then also some bolts to bolt this to the bracket. So you don't have to do everything in your original sketch. You can kind of layer your sketches. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to create another circle. And instead of selecting one of these axes, or one of these planes right here, I'm actually just going to select the face of my wheel, this top surface. So you can sketch on one of the planes, or you can just sketch on one of the surfaces. The cursor will snap to different objects. So right now it's kind of snapped to the origin. And if I just kind of go straight up, it gives you a little line letting you know that it's going vertically above the origin. So I'm going to create another circle here. Once again, I'm not going to worry about the size. I will correct the size later. I'm going to hit OK. The circle that I'm making now, if I go back to my PDF, these 6 holes, these are the bolt holes that we actually bolted the flange to the disc hub. So this little dotted line that goes through the center of all these things is called a bolt circle. So that tells you the diameter of this circle, and we can see that this bolt circle is 1.73 in diameter, and we can also see that these holes are 0.24 in diameter. So we'll go back to Fusion 360. I'm going to drag this to the center a little bit. I'll go grab my dimension tool. I know that this circle, left click to place the dimension, and I can type in 0.24 inches. It'll go ahead and make it the correct size. And then I know that the diameter of that bolt circle is 1.73. So I'm going to go from the center of the wheel to the center of this circle. And it's not going to be 1.73. I've just marked out the radius, so it's going to be 1.73 divided by 2. You can put equations in there, and it does the math for me. And it kind of moved it down out of the way because it's a much smaller distance than I had. So I'll go to fit, so I can see the whole wheel, and now I can kind of zoom in here, and now I can see that that dimension from the center is 0.865. That is half of 1.73. And then I've got this circle, which is also the right diameter for the bolt. So now I need 6 of these. So I could put these. I could try to find a way to get the right angle in here, but there's a much simpler way to do that. I'm going to cancel out of the dimension command. And you can either do this in the sketch mode, or I can stop my sketch, and I can do it as a feature. So I'll go ahead and I'll just do it in the sketch command. So I'm going to create a circular pattern, which is just going to duplicate that one bolt hole several times. So I select circular pattern. First thing it wants me to do is select an object. What do I want to make a pattern of? So I want that circle. So it tells me I've got one selected. It wants to know a center point for that circle. So I'm going to click this. So it highlights blue. It lets me know that that's what I'm selecting. I want the center of the circle. And it comes up with a full circle. So you can see there's 3 of them listed already. And if I just hit the up arrow here, it goes to 4 of them, 5 of them, and 6 of them. And there were 6 on our original drawing. They're all equally spaced. So I just hit OK. And now I've got 6 of those circles, that same distance away from the center, same size, all equally spaced, and it's really nice. So now I'll go ahead and hit Stop Sketch. I'll go ahead and hit the home view, and you can see that I've got all those circles on that center face of the wheel. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to take all of these circles. I actually need to click inside the circle. And I'm just going to hold down the Shift key while I select these. Didn't quite get that one. Sometimes it's kind of particular about where you are. Let me zoom a little bit better. You'll see it changes color. And of course, since I'm doing a tutorial, it's being difficult. Once again, since this is cloud-based, you have to be a little bit patient with it. You can't just click faster. You gotta be a little bit slow. Great. So I've got those 6 faces selected. So I'm going to hover over one of them. I'm going to right-click the press pull. This is the extrude command. And I don't want to extrude these upward. I don't want to create new material. I don't want to join. I want to go ahead and cut. So I want to go through the body the opposite way. And I know that my distance is 0.5 because that's how thick I made my cardboard. But instead of just typing in that same distance, the cardboard may be the wrong distance. So I'm going to come over here to extent. And instead of giving a specific distance, I'm just going to say I'm going to cut through all layers. And then it'll just automatically cut through to the bottom of the material. So if we go back and I need to change the thickness of my material, it'll change that cut as well to match it. So I go ahead and hit OK. And now I've got the 6 holes for the wheel hub. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. The next thing I need to do is make some holes in here for our wheel bracket. And we don't have a wheel bracket made, but I know I'm going to have to bolt these pieces of cardboard together somehow. Bolt them or glue them. So I'll just start a new sketch. Once again, I'm making some more circles. I'm not going to pick either of these planes. I'm going to pick this object right here, the top of my wheel. I'm going to select that. And same thing. I want the if this is where the flange is getting bolted, I want the cardboard to be bolted on that same line. So you can kind of see it kind of grabbed onto the edge of that circle, and that's not what I want. So I'll just come down here to the center. It grabs onto the center, if I'm lucky. Okay, now, alright, so let me zoom in a little bit. Now it's grabbed onto the center. So I'll put my center here, come out a certain distance. Once again, I really don't even know how big these bolts are going to be that we're going to use. And that's a great thing. I just kind of can come back here and change it. So we'll just guess that we're going to use 1/4 inch bolts. That makes it the correct size. And then once again, from the center of our circle to the center of that. I'm not even sure how far I want it, but 4 inches looks nice. So we'll go ahead and hit OK. If I zoom out, we got a pretty big wheel. So I'm going to make another bolt hole up here. So I'm going to need another circle. You can kind of see it kind of snaps to that green vertical line. So I'll place the center there. I'll come out, and I'm not even going to try to get the correct size because it's so much easier just to click. Place your dimension, and then I guess that was a 0.25 bolt that we're putting through there. And then where do I want that hole? It'll snap to the center. I have to zoom in a little bit to make sure I get the center of this circle. I'll place this dimension. It's at 9 inches, and we'll just change it to 10. And if we don't like it, we can just come back in and change it later. To change the dimension, I can exit out of the dimension tool. If I just click it and then double click, it opens it back up, and you can edit this value whatever you want to. Okay, so last time I went ahead and did the circular pattern in the sketch tool. This time I'll do it from the feature tool. So I'm going to stop my sketch, go back to my overall view, and I'm going to take these two circles. I'm going to zoom in, select that one. I'm going to hold down my middle mouse button to kind of pan. Actually, I'm going to zoom out so I can see it, where I'm going. So that one circle selected. I'm going to come over here. It'll kind of change to a color. There you go. So I'm going to shift, select both of them. So both of those circles are selected. I'm going to hover over it. I'm going to right click and do the press pull. I'm going to go through it. And once again, I know that my dimension is 0.5, but I'm just going to say through all. It's going to adjust it to the correct distance for me. And I'm going to hit OK. So now I've got two holes right here, but we're going to want to put those holes all around. So instead of doing the sketch, I can come over here to create a circular pattern. So you can do a pattern with actually inside the sketch, or you can do it as a feature. So now it says, what object do I want to do? And I want to do a feature. So I'm going to come down here to this extrude. Those are the holes that I just made. And this is kind of our history bar of the actions I've done. I made a sketch and extruded it for the wheel. I made a sketch for the center hole and the hubs and extruded that. Then I made a sketch for the bolt holes on the wheel and extruded those. So I want to use these two wheels, and they kind of highlight in the view. It highlights them in blue. It asks for an axis, so I'll pick this one right here. And once again, it kind of guesses, thinks I want 3 of them, but I'm going to go ahead and get 6. And since these two are lined up with this bolt, the rest of them should match as well. So I'm going to hit OK, and it goes ahead and makes those extra bolt holes. So if I go to the top view, you can see that these are all in the same line moving outward from the axis. So as we're designing, if we see that something's wrong, if we need a bigger bolt or need to change something, I can come over here to my sketch. I can pick one of these 3 sketches and go back to Edit Sketch. And if we decide that these are the wrong places, I can kind of grab this forward and move it over here so it's easier to see. Double click this. I'll change it to 5 and hit Enter. Double click this one, change it to 12 and hit Enter. And that's really okay. We'll change this bolt to 0.375. Change this one, 0.375. And even though I'm just changing these 2, when I hit Enter, whenever I go back and hit Stop Sketch, it'll update all the geometry. All of these bolts are now bigger, and they're all moved out to the farther side. You can see that these were the 0.24 bolts, and now these are the 0.375. If we wanted to change the size of the wheel, I could come back to this sketch, edit the sketch, and instead of being this a 28-inch wheel, if we need to change it to 29, I can hit Enter, and everything updates automatically. So that's the great thing about Fusion 360 and just CAD in general, is that once you've got your part modeled, you can go back to any of your sketches, change those dimensions, and adjust as needed. So if I made a mistake somewhere, I can just go back and change it. One of the things I want to do is right now this is a body. So I'm going to open up the body folder and click body 1. It's going to highlight as blue. I'm going to right click and create components from body. And that's going to turn that body into a component. And there's just a lot more things we can do with components than we can do with bodies. So once you have your general shape made, you can convert it to a component. Now I can still go back here and sketch something on here and change it, but we want to make sure this is a component. I'm going to come in here, double click, and just call this wheel. So that this is a wheel. You can have other parts in here. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to save. And this is in my folders. And you'll be working in your own folders. You can call it whatever you want to. Wheel, cribs, and I can't remember how many wheels I've made, but we'll call this tutorial 1. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. And up here now it's got a name for it. It's got V0. If I come back to, let's say my sketch 3, and I edit that sketch, and I change these back to 0.25, double click here, back to 0.25 and hit Enter. Instead of being V0, now it's V1. Fusion 360 automatically keeps track of your changes. The asterisk means that I haven't saved those changes. So I made those bolts back to 1/4 inch. So all you have to do is hit save. Leave this as user saved and hit OK. And that goes back to V1. So you've created your first part, and we'll go ahead and stop this tutorial here.